Welcome back to Steel City Sports. So today we're talking NFC Championship game. I can't believe we're at this point of the year now where we only have 3 NFL games left, but we're here, and I think all these games are going to be fantastic. The fact the Lions are even here, like we've talked about that all year, how great this storyline has been. I just want to talk about this specific matchup, though. I think you can make an argument for both these teams. You know, the Lions' argument is, well, look at how weird that Niners performance was against Green Bay. Like, I get it. Green Bay, Jordan Love is playing really well. But overall, roster standpoint, the 49ers, player for player, are in a different stratosphere than the Green Bay Packers. You know, the Packers were a 7 seed, and the fact that they squeaked out a win against Green Bay, to me, is kind of concerning, specifically for the fact that Brock Purdy just didn't look good. He really didn't look good. Coming off of a bye, you know, as it's healthy as he's ever going to be, well-rested, healthy, and at home, he just didn't look good. It looked like he couldn't grip the ball. I mean, it's not like it was a torrential downpour in San Francisco. It was a light rain, and he just looked kind of off. And a really weird performance from Kyle Shanahan. Like, he clearly got outcoached by Matt LaFleur. The Packers just made a couple boneheaded decisions in that game that I really think comes down to inexperience, you know, with their kicker missing that field goal and with Jordan Love throwing the late game interception. Kind of bailed the Niners out, because you watch that game for about 46 minutes of that game, for like majority of that game, it looked like the Packers were going to win that game. They squeaked it out, and that's, to me, ultimately why I'm not that confident in the Niners, because you look at the Lions, I think they're a far superior team to the Packers. Like, I'm not trying to take away from Green Bay, but they were a 7th seed for a reason. They do have their limitations. Detroit is a whole other monster, is a whole other animal. They have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. They have the best 1-2 punch running back tandem in the NFL with Gibbs and Montgomery. Jared Goff. One of my biggest things of concern for the Lions going into the playoffs was Jared Goff, because I was like, well, I've seen him in big games this year kind of get rattled and not play the same and make some costly mistakes for the Lions whenever, you know, it's one thing whenever the Lions, they're playing with a lead and they need you to just manage the game. But whenever it's on Jared Goff's arm and he needs to go win you the game, I've seen multiple times, not only this year, but with the Rams, him cost his team games. So I was like, I like the Lions. I like their story. I like their roster, but I think Goff's ultimately too limited. Throw that out the window, because Goff has been phenomenal in the 2 playoff games we've seen him play. Against his former team, the Rams, against Tampa Bay with a defensive culture that was throwing blitzes at him the entire game. He did not look rattled. He had poise in the pocket. And don't quote me on this, but has he thrown an interception yet? I could be wrong on that. Let me know in the comments. Has Jared Goff thrown a pick in the playoffs this year yet? But either way, even if he has thrown one, he's been incredible. Like, he's been perfect. He's done everything they've asked him to do. Granted, it isn't a dome. It is at home. So now we're going to see him go on the road. But I'm pretty sure he's from the Bay Area, around there in like Northern California. So it's not like he's going to, tundra. Like, he's familiar with the weather there. I haven't looked at the weather if it's going to be rainy or not, but just for the fact that it's outdoors doesn't worry me about Goff at all. Like, yeah, most quarterbacks, unless you're named Allen or Mahomes, you're going to struggle in snowy conditions, but you don't have to worry about that when you're playing in San Francisco. So I think specifically from a momentum standpoint, the Lions crushed the Niners in that. When you're just looking at momentum and positivity going into this game, for the fact that they looked so good last week against Tampa, and the fact that obviously this is such a historical year for their team. And then on the other side, the Niners, we just said, like, that win against the Packers, it was kind of embarrassing. Like, you squeaked by a 7-seeded team. In reality, you should have bludgeoned that team. And then the argument for the Niners is really, well, we just have the better team. You know, we player for player probably have the best roster in the NFL. Brock Purdy, we've seen him go into slides, but I will give him credit. Like, he was a lot better later on in that game, especially like having a game-winning drive against Green Bay. Even throughout the regular season, like, he would go into dips and then he'd recover later on. Like, Brock Purdy, the one thing that I would say he is elite at is he doesn't really get too low on himself. Like, he does a really good job of kind of having a short-term memory. And they say you have to have that as a quarterback. You have to be able to just forget what happened last drive, get out there, and just play with the confidence. And Purdy is really good at that. So you have that. Like I said, you have the roster. The big question mark, it feels like this whole week has been, is Deebo Samuel going to play in this game? Because we know Deebo Samuel is probably the most unique offensive weapon in the NFL, just for his versatility. And he's been kind of banged up this entire year now. Like, I had him in fantasy. I know he did miss like a couple games here and there throughout the year. But if I had to just guess, I would say he's going to play. I've seen mixed reports. I've seen somewhere like just as short as 2 hours ago, I saw a report that's saying like he's not even going to practice. Like he's too sore. He has his shoulder injury. And then I saw other reports, like people that know him, that are saying like there's no way he's not going to miss that game, which I would probably lean more towards that. I don't think, just knowing his character, I think he'd be more of like a just tape it up type of guy and get out there and play. I think no matter what, Deebo will play. Whether he's at 100% or not, I think it's clear he's not going to be at 100%, but he's still going to be out there. It's still Deebo Samuel. He still has that unbelievable ability. Even if he is having an off night, you have Ayuk, you have Kittle, you have McCaffrey. You have that offensive line, which is very capable, and a defense that can definitely make plays. And you have Kyle Shanahan. I mean, I may have overrated Kyle Shanahan just looking at how he got outcoached by Joe Barry, because essentially he was going against Joe Barry, which was the Packers defensive coordinator. The Packers liked Joe Barry so much that they fired him after that game. So that shows you what they thought of Joe Barry. But Joe Barry outcoached Kyle Shanahan in that game. So I don't know. I really don't know if I still think Kyle is the best. I think if he wins the Super Bowl this year, I would probably stick with that take. But if they lose to the Lions with being more than a touchdown favorite, I think it's obviously not time to get rid of him. You definitely keep him around. But at least for me, I would probably stop calling him the best coach in the NFL. For me, you have to get it done this year. I am predicting the Niners to win this game. This roster is just too loaded at every single position on the field. You're at home. Brock Purdy, it's hard to imagine he has a worse game than he had against the Packers. It's hard to imagine Shanahan gets outcoached again. So I think it's going to be a much different performance. I think they're going to come out and make a statement game, but I'm not as confident on it. Like, I'm not putting money on it. I'm not putting money on any of these games because it's just going to be too close, I think. Like, if you would have told me before the season, or not even before the season, but let's say before the playoffs started, the NFC Championship game is going to be Detroit versus San Francisco, what do you think is going to happen? I would have said 1,000% the Niners are going to win that game. But just how I've seen these teams perform in the playoffs, it has changed that now, where I'm more at kind of like a coin toss. Like, I think the Niners, on paper, they should win this game handily. Like, they have basically every advantage you could want outside of maybe quarterback. Like, I probably would take Goff over Purdy, but it's not that big of a margin. And I think every other position, the Niners probably have an advantage in. So you have all that. This is the year the Niners have to get it done. It's that simple. The collection of Hall of Fame level talent you have on the San Francisco 49ers, the fact that you're going to start losing some of these guys year in and year out the next couple years. You're going to start losing guys like Trent Williams, who's 35, 36 years old. Those guys don't grow on trees. Hall of Fame level left tackle players, they don't just come out of nowhere. Like, when you lose that guy, it's going to change the offense. Brandon Ayuk is going to need paid. And I think he's going to command upwards of $20 million a year. You show me where with the Niners and their finances, how they're going to be able to afford that guy. Deebo Samuel, the injuries are already playing a factor. You think that's going to go away as he keeps racking up more blows on his body? Christian McCaffrey's in the same vein as Deebo. Like, he probably had his most healthy season relatively of his career. I mean, not of his career, because I think 2018 he did play the whole year. But at least for the past couple of years, this is the most healthy we've seen McCaffrey. You need to get it done this year. It's that simple. It comes down to that. You have this level of Hall of Fame talent. You have that coach. You need to make it happen. When you're this big of a favorite at home, Detroit, they've been a good story, but it's time to go out there and win the game for the Niners. So that's ultimately my prediction. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Please like and subscribe.